So recently I published a video on Patreon about some of my favorite depictions of trauma, or what I analyze to be a depiction of trauma in horror. But I do want to talk about this a little bit more because I think overall these narratives of revenge, especially female revenge, is something that may actually help many of us live through what feels like the end times for many people. And I'm not talking about US elections. I think I've shared time and time again that electoral politics, usually communists don't really participate. If you're interested in learning more, you should read Lenin, and he talks about this in a few of his works. I think in Infantile Disorder, this book, maybe in The State and Revolution, I'm not sure, but Lenin definitely did talk about how we can use this as our tools, but we should not put a lot of faith into electoral politics. Definitely, there is a lot to talk about, but I don't really feel like talking about it. However, I do think that it's necessary for a lot of people to discover revenge narratives, just because a lot of people who have experienced trauma, we tend to have a lot of this pent-up rage, and we feel like we must find an outlet for this rage, and oftentimes we may become very hateful towards particular groups of people or particular segments of the population just because they may appear to be weaker than us, and this is how we replicate the harmful ideologies of capitalism, because capitalism flourishes off of us separating from each other, isolating from each other, feeling like we are these atomized individuals. This is something that I constantly talk about just because it is true. We are forced to replicate the same ideological patterns because of our own personal history of trauma. And to me, this is evidence that the social man, the bigger ideological subject, the collective unconscious, all of these concepts are there to just explain to us how our own psychology works in a certain set of social conditions, and how they are necessarily predetermined by the ideology that is currently present. And this ideology, of course, is based off of economic circumstances. All of these things can be understood through dialectical analysis, through material analysis of history, and this is what I continuously promote here on my channel. But going back to revenge narratives and how they may be helpful for us to examine in order to make sense of the world, in order to feel better, we must necessarily separate our feelings from ourselves. And this is what they teach you in Buddhism as well. In Zen Buddhism, if you try various types of meditations, you will be always told to separate yourself from your thoughts and emotions. You're supposed to just learn to watch them pass. When you're meditating, you're told to observe yourself as if you are not yourself. And this process helps you not only detach from certain particular sets of feelings and emotions, it also helps you realize that emotions are kind of like the weather. They come and they go. And nowadays, it is essential for people who feel all of this rage and all of this helplessness to be able to utilize such tools in order to effectively organize. Because if you succumb to a certain state of being, to a certain emotion, you are going to be blind. You're going to be an object. You will not be able to exert your full agency and your full subjectivity, because you may just succumb to your impulses and do things without thinking of the consequences. And this is what we were able to observe with some activism, such as Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil have done. By the way, I'm not condemning these people necessarily. I'm not saying that they're stupid and they're spoiling art and they're bad. That's not what I'm saying. This is not really what I criticize them for. What I'm criticizing them for is what they're doing is not very effective, and it is very emotional based, and it is going to come and go, just as most emotions do. People are going to feel something over this, and it's going to be gone. What we are aiming at is not just feeling better in the moment. What we're aiming at is structural change, systemic change. And these things are built slowly over time. And these things are built by huge groups of people who organize all over the world. And this is impossible to do if we continuously experience these violent impulses or any other kind of impulses that may lead us to participate in activities that may have questionable outcomes, that may disable certain people, that may make certain people go to jail or otherwise endanger these people. So we don't want such activities to be the core activities, the core of direct action that we do, simply because they're not effective. What we should be practicing instead are the kind of activities that are going to be somewhat of a slow burn. things that are going to kind of permeate the rest of the population that we are able to reach. And we should always remember our limitations. As little groups of people, we are never going to be able to reach millions upon millions of people. Even if it's, some big creators on YouTube who millions and millions of people are watching, this is still not the type of organizing that's going to be effective. Yes, those people may be able to give you some ideas, inspire you for certain action, but locally, you are going to have to make plans that may be very hard to replicate somewhere else, because all of these little details, all of these individual differences, they're going to matter when you organize locally. The organizing game is kind of like zooming in and zooming out continuously, looking at a bigger picture, then zooming in onto the smaller local issues. And this is a continuous dance between the bigger picture and the smaller picture. And this is why you have to be able to hold a lot of nuance and hold a lot of different perspectives. And in order to do that, you should be able to emotionally regulate, and you should be able to come to organizing spaces being very calm and collected. And to do that, you have to be able to detach yourself from your emotions and your thoughts. And it's a very hard process, and it's a very gradual process. And you can start doing that by meditating for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. You don't have to do a sitting down meditation. You can do active meditations. I think I shared before, shaking meditations, dancing meditations, rage filled type of meditations where you may be hitting your pillow, you may be screaming in your pillow, you may be giving a physical outlet to your rage, to your grief, to all this pain that you feel for other people, for yourself, for all the losses that capitalism has caused you. And this is necessary to do so that then your nervous system is at a safer spot where you can come and talk to other people without spilling all that rage onto them. Because if you don't regulate your nervous system, if you don't work with your anger, your grief, and your pain and your loss, this is going to influence other people. This is going to have an impact on other people. You may be short-tempered, you may be impatient, you may start becoming angry with your comrades, and this is not good, okay? This is what leads to all these fracturalism when people divide into smaller and smaller and smaller groups. And I have only been a part of a bigger movement for just a little while, and I've already witnessed a few of those events. This is why I think that taking care of our emotional states is so important, because I have seen perfectly rational, capable people do things that are very irrational, that are very impulse-driven, and ultimately those actions harmed the bigger community, harmed the bigger movement. And it is something that we have to bear in mind if we want to move forward, if we want to at least attempt to change something in the world. We have to remember that all of our individual issues are going to rub off on other people. So we are responsible for this. Of course, we have to reach out for help. And of course, it's important to reach out to someone else and do some of this work collectively, because just as I mentioned before, much of the grief and much of the pain is meant to be processed collectively. You should be doing, dancing circles or some kind of activities where you come together and you feel that pain, that rage together. If you're able to do that, do that. This is going to be even more effective. If you've ever been a part of the alternative metal scenes, for example, or punk scenes, you have probably experienced a lot of that when you're in a mosh pit and everyone's just dancing and pushing each other and, falling over and experiencing all that rage and just screaming and yelling and running around. This is a very helpful activity, but it has to be done in a very controlled environment so that no one is actually harmed. If you want to start your commie little comrade mosh pit, do that, be safe, but this is a very helpful, great activity to do, which people have been practicing. Indigenous people have been practicing different types of these kind of collective meditations for a while, and I'm calling them collective meditations kind of loosely, but I think you know what I'm talking about. All kinds of dancing, all kinds of rituals that are based on body movement and this freedom and this letting go. When done in a group, it's very powerful. It's very effective at helping you regulate your emotions. They don't necessarily mean much. They're not some holy, sacred experiences, but they work. They help your nervous system kind of restart, and then you feel better. You may feel very tired after participating in such activities, so give yourself some time to rest, but do these things regularly, maybe once a week, maybe a couple times a week if you can find the time and the space to do that. But do these things because what we are dealing with currently is an emergency. It has been an emergency for a while, but climate change is upon us. I don't know about your weather, but in here the weather is very, very interesting. It's very different. It has never been like this. It's changing. I can feel everything changing. I can feel it in the air. I can feel it in the water. It is uncanny. It is scary. I'm not going to deny that. It fills you with dread. It fills you with doom and gloom for the future, but it's not too late. We still can do things in order to help ourselves and the rest of the world. So we should be focusing on helping ourselves and helping the people who are the closest to us, but we've got to do that in an organized manner. So let me know what you think. I hope that you have a great and productive day and week. Consider supporting me on Patreon. Do take care of yourself and your community first, and I'll talk to you sometime later.